Welcome into Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Today on the show, a disappointing list. What's the top priority? And the heck with Messi. It's all next. It's Hitting Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.
This is Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Hitting Hard is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We ask you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts and get the latest episodes of Hitting Hard as soon as they become available. Check us out on the Sirius XM app as well, and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. So I've been talking about this on my radio show for the last couple of nights, that Pro Football Focus has the 50 best players in the NFL right now. Okay, the 50 best players in the NFL right now. Now, as of today, as we're Friday morning, they have gone from 50 down to 11. Okay, so the top 10 will be revealed later on at some point today. They're going to have the top 10 today. But when you look at this list, and it's, again, it's all the best players right now, right? I mean, that's the theme of the list. We've got the 49ers and Ravens and Colts and Steelers and Eagles and Jets and Titans and Browns and let's see, who else we got? Commanders, Chargers, Cowboys, Chiefs, Giants. Let's see, Packers are represented, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Miami, the Rams. What are we not listening? What teams am I not? What team am I not mentioning on there? And that's the Atlanta Falcons. Now, here's the frustrating thing. Look, in the grand scheme of things, does this really matter? Probably not. No. But isn't it indicative of just kind of where we're at as a franchise? Again, it's not like we haven't had top level picks. We've picked fourth and eighth, and just even the last 3 years, we've had high, single digit draft picks over the last 3 years. And look, they don't have a bias against rookies or young guys, because when you look at this list, Sauce Gardner is number 18. He hasn't been in the league for a decade. Okay. There are young players all up and down this list. Tristan Wirfs. Again, I can guarantee 100,000% to you that Micah Parsons is going to be on this list. He come out the same year as Kyle Pitts. So it's not like they have any kind of bias or anything like that. But doesn't it speak a lot to where our talent level is, and especially at key positions? Well, we've had to rebuild. Okay, whatever. Again, this is my concern, and I've preached this all week long, and I'm going to continue to beat people over the head with all of this until I see it. And this is going to be the job that Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot have to get right. I think when you look, I think that the only player that has a shot to make the top 10 for the Atlanta Falcons is Chris Lindstrom. I think at the end of the day that, again, we were doing this where the top 20 through 11 player had not been revealed yet either. And I thought, well, maybe AJ Terrell could find his way, in there. Probably Lindstrom or whatever like that. There's no way AJ Terrell is going to make the top 10 players in the NFL right now list, especially given the season that he had last year, which was a bit of a disappointment where he kind of regressed a little bit. Pitts is not going to make the list. Drake London's not going to make the list. Our quarterback's obviously not going to make the list. So you start going down your Rolodex of who's going to make the list in the top 10. Well, it's going to be obviously Mahomes and Burrow and probably Jalen Hurts and, again, Parsons and this, that, and the other. So there's very few spots that are going to be left by the time, again, I don't know if Khalil Mack is going to make that top 10, but he's not on their list as of right now. Joey Bosa is not on the list, Nick Bosa isn't on the list right now. He's going to make the top 10. Myles Garrett's going to be a top 10 player. So there's very few spots that are going to be available. But it would say something to the idea that if the Falcons don't even have a guy that would rank in the top 50 of the NFL now, it does speak to the lack of talent that we have on this roster, and especially at key positions, and especially at positions that influence a football game. Even if we had a top 10 wide receiver or something, it'd give me a little bit more hope. Just, okay, we've got a real star that we can build around. But I look at this list and it's like, who's not represented? I mean, other than maybe us and Detroit, Jacksonville, I think, hasn't had a player on the list. Like the amount of teams that are not represented is minuscule. And it just speaks to kind of where we're at. And again, look, could we at the end of next year have multiple players that are top 50 in the NFL? Yeah. And look at the Jets right now. The Jets have Quinnen Williams. They have Sauce Gardner, who's the highest rated cornerback in the NFL right now. He's the hottest thing going. What's he played? A decade? Oh, he hasn't? Oh, he's only played 1 year. Aaron. So even the Jets, for all their floundering and all their lack of talent that they've drafted, they have multiples of guys. It's just frustrating when you see kind of the state of the Falcons from a talent perspective, that there aren't those guys that just pop. There aren't those guys that just wow you. And I'm not even saying we got to have 4 or 5 of these guys. We don't have one. We don't have one guy that just pops off the page that you look at and say, oh, well, that's a top 50 player. That guy's a top 50 talent. No. And I'm not even talking about, okay, well, do we have a top 50 quarterback? Or I'm not even so much worried about that. I don't have anybody on this list right now. They've gone 50 through 11, and there's not a single Falcons player on that list. Now, again, this is, hope and change and pray and wish and thoughtful prayers. And again, it's all this kind of hocus pocus. But again, this is why I've criticized Kyle Pitts and other players. We have to step this thing up. If these are the guys we're going to roll with, 8-8-4, Drake, Pitts, Bijan, then we have to get those guys to be elite level players. Then those guys have to step up and become an elite level player. If that's the guys we're going to roll with, unless we're going to suddenly make a trade, of Kyle Pitts for Micah Parsons or whatever like that, then these are the guys we're going to roll with. And we have to find a way to make it happen with these guys. We have to find a way to have these guys excel and be difference makers, even though they don't necessarily play key positions on the football field. Quarterback, O-line, defensive edge. Even though they don't necessarily have, the impact that some players do, we have to find a way to win with them. But it is frustrating that, again, we look at this roster, and just there's not a guy that immediately pops. There's not a guy that just immediately says, you can plug him in. Now, again, I think Lindstrom's if Lindstrom makes the top 10, I would not have a problem with that. I think he's the best interior offensive lineman probably going in the league right now. There are some guys that grade out higher, this, that, and the other. But for what Lindstrom is asked to do and for what he means to this team, I think he's absolutely a top 10 player in this league. I think he's absolutely one of the best interior offensive linemen in the entirety of the NFL. Will Pro Football Focus see him that way? I mean, look, and I can tell you, it ain't like Pro Football Focus doesn't give the Falcons their bouquets as far as certain players. They love Pitts. They love Drake London. They love Chris Lindstrom. Like, they have guys that they really like. They have guys that they throw flowers and bouquets at all of the time. So it isn't like that there aren't Falcon players that, again, this is not about a team. This is about individual players. And they throw bouquets at guys all the time in this scenario. But it's just frustrating to not have one of those guys that pops off the page and you look and say, okay, that's a top 50 talent. Again, I'm not asking for Mahomes or Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Aaron, all guys who made the list. I'm talking about, I don't care what position that person plays. I don't care if it is Sauce Gardner at corner who hasn't played more than a year in the NFL. I don't care if it's a guy who's Tyreek Hill that's played multiple years and he's a wide receiver. I don't care if it's Zach Smith from the Cowboys. I don't care who it is. Let me have some guys that pop off the page talent-wise. Because, again, at the end of the day, we're going to have some of these guys that really step their game up. And hopefully they can do all of this, even though that a lot of those guys may not play in key positions on the football field. But, again, these are the guys that we're going to roll with at the end of the day. These are the guys that we're hitching our wagon to that have to step up and perform. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And as you know, FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And as we're now in the second half of MLB season, you can bet at FanDuel.com and get in on the action of MLB, where you can get 10 times your first bet in bonus bets. That's right. $20 if you bet, you'll get $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. So claim $200 in bonus bets, up to $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend on everything from betting on money lines to over-unders to who you think's going to hit the first home run. Obviously, FanDuel, safe, secure, and super easy to use. But the best part is you get paid instantly when you win at FanDuel. So there's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. So head today to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON. FanDuel is the official partner of Major League Baseball. So a little experiment for y'all, okay? And I'm interested to see what your comment is on this, okay? If the Atlanta Braves are only able to fix one thing, what would it be? So let's just, for argument's sake, say that Alex Anthopoulos is only able to address one position to fix, okay? Would it be a bat? Would it be a starting pitcher? Or would it be relief pitching? Now, I'll give you my answer here in just a second. Now, obviously, look, this is fantasy land, but again, what do you kind of think top priority is right now? This is fantasy land booking. Again, we know that Alex Anthopoulos can do, as many moves as he possibly wants, but I will say for my sake that I'll speak solely for myself that I think the relief pitching is the place where they need to address the most. And while they have some guys that have had good years, they have also had guys that I don't know that I trust when it comes to be playoff time. Now, I'm sure there are people that will tell you, that will say, well, Raisel Iglesias is not a guy we can trust. Okay, but you have to roll with your closer. Like, I don't think the Braves are going out and getting a new closer. I don't. I don't think that they are looking for another guy to close out games for the back end, but I guess stranger things have happened, and Alex Anthopoulos could look at that. But again, we have seen this over the last few years, whether it's been Will Smith or Kenley Jansen, now Iglesias. Closers are not going to be perfect. There are very few times in a baseball season where you end up with Dennis Eckersley in 1990. Like, those guys are few and far between. Those guys are, rare commodities when you have a guy that can go, 46 for 47 in saves and, blow people. I mean, those things just don't happen, right? Closers are going to have their bumps in the road and stuff like that. But some of the matchups that we've been able to produce out there, lefty-righty matchups have, at times gone well and at times really stunk up the joint. And I know that that's the nature of bullpens. No bullpen is perfect. If you look at the metrics, the Braves have actually had a pretty good bullpen. They've actually been pretty good out of their bullpen. But I definitely think that this is the area where if you're going to try to improve the team, even more than starting pitching, and I do think that the Braves, at the end of the day, Anthopoulos is going to address the starting pitching He's going to address the bullpen, and they might even add a bat coming off the bench or just for some right-handed punch. I could see all of that happening. I could see all three of those moves happening. But I'm curious as to if Alex Anthopoulos was only allowed to address one spot, starter, reliever, bat, what would you pick on it? Leave us a comment, on the in the comment section there. But let us know. But I think that for me, top priority is adding another reliever or two, and in fact, adding another left-handed reliever to match up. I certainly think that that's, again, and when you see the Dodgers, which are loaded with left-handed hitters, that's probably a spot where you want to have another lefty available to come out of the bullpen for you. But I'll take relief pitcher. Now, again, I think they're going to address starter. I think that right now, it's not even so much about a starter that can start in the playoffs and be an ace or anything like this. I think they just have to bridge some innings to not wear out their bullpen and get a little bit more productivity out of their starters. And if nothing else, maybe they give Elder a day off or what have you. I mean, again, I know the idea of, he's an all-star and, you want him pitching, every fifth day, but maybe they slow him down just a little bit. And again, I don't know what the plan is going to be, when all the dust settles and the smoke clears and everything like that. But it certainly feels like that something has to change a little bit, or you got to infuse some new talent into this, both bullpen and maybe a starter. We're waiting on Max Fried to get back. He's going to, he's been moved up to Gwinnett. So he's no longer in Rome. He's moved up to Gwinnett, and he'll rehab start. And probably, honestly, he'll probably have one more rehab start before they drop him into the rotation. And that will fit because, again, you're looking at probably end of the month, first part of August. But again, he's going to have to get his sea legs up, right? Soroka's still getting his sea legs up, right? I mean, again, thankfully for the Braves, they've done so much good work that as we sit right now, they're 10.5 games up on it, 10.5 games up on the Phillies, 10.5 games up on the Marlins. What is it, 18 or 18.5 games up on the Mutts? So they've done their good hard work up to this point. And again, I've told you that the division is over. I'm not worried about winning the division at this point. Okay. I mean, again, the division is ours. You saw yesterday that the Braves won, and then the Phillies lost in their game. The Mutts lost to the Chicago White Sox as well. So again, those teams are really no threat. But I'm looking at the bigger picture. I'm looking at the more 35,000-foot view of things. How do we match up against some of the top teams? And this will be a fun series coming up because, again, it's the Milwaukee Brewers. They lead the NL Central. They've been okay. I mean, they have some good pitching. Their bats are kind of, hit or miss at times. Yelich has had a nice year. He hasn't had an MVP caliber year. He's had a nice year. But we'll see what happens. This is a good, test for the Braves. But leave us a comment. Let us know what would be your top priority if they could fix just one thing. If they were only allowed to fix one thing, I vote for relief pitching in that scenario. All right, as you listen in to Hittin' Hard, let us know in the comment section of whatever podcast platform that you listen on that you're an everyday listener to the show. So we thank you so much for being a part of our growing community and being a part of this journey and this ride that we've been on. So let us know that you're an everydayer, that you listen in 5 days a week to the show. We thank you so much for being a part of our audience out there. So Lionel Messi, this story kind of popped up out of nowhere yesterday, and I kind of got hot about this. So this is from Sports Reporter that we follow each other for Sportico. He says at least one MLS club has no plans to accommodate Mr. Messi with natural grass when he comes to town. Atlanta United is one of 5 clubs that play on turf. And the thought process is when Messi comes here on September 16th, that they are not going to install a temporary grass field for Messi. Now, Messi, if you don't know, Messi has never played on turf before, okay? Now, has Messi said that he will not play on turf? That's been the speculation and rumor okay? But it's not happened from his chicken lips. He's not said, I'm not going to play on turf or anything like that. Now, here's a couple of things, okay? Why would the Atlanta United, why would United go in and change up the field specifically for Messi? If Messi doesn't want to play, good. Okay. Hey, listen, makes our life a lot easier. So why would they accommodate? Well, Messi's a huge draw and he's the star and international name. Okay. You do know that the Atlanta United, they lead the league in attendance. So how much bigger are they? Average over 45,000 people per game. That's significantly higher than the next highest team. They've had over 540,000 people run through the turnstiles. The next closest franchise is Seattle at 414,000, and they've played one more game than Atlanta United has at home. So Atlanta United is about 4,000 fans up year over year from 2023 to 2022. They're about 4,000 fans up, and they're even after the pandemic in 2021 when people wanted to get back and start watching sports, they're up about 1,500 fans per game, even over that number. So how much of a pop are you going to get because of Lionel Messi? Can I tell you, Taylor Swift bought more money into the city of Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium than Messi's ever going to bring in. So screw Messi. If the only way he's going to play in Atlanta is they install a turf field, screw him, screw Tata Martino, screw their whole franchise. Again, I'm not accommodating them. And Garth Lagerwey has talked about this. They're not accommodating. They're not going to change out their field all of a sudden. And by the way, too, the turf that they play on, and Tata Martino knows this. He's now the manager for Inter Miami. They have the highest rating that FIFA has for soccer fields. Like they have FIFA's highest rating of turf. Now, again, I'll ask the question because, again, the narrative has been, well, Messi's never played on turf. Where would Messi have played on turf anyway? Bangladesh? I mean, where exactly would Messi in all these open air stadiums throughout Europe? They're all grass. They've always been grass. Like, where would Messi have played on turf other than maybe some practices and stuff like that? You think that he would, you think that going to Iran, that they have the technology to have a turf field at the level of Mercedes-Benz Stadium? Come on, folks. I mean, again, this is a non-story. But the idea of, and Charlotte, by the way, too, said the same thing. They're not installing a grass field for Messi. Here's what this is me speaking, okay? Not anybody else, not the team or anything like that, okay? If I'm Atlanta United, this is what I would mandate my guys to do. If I'm Atlanta United and Messi's there and he's not going to play because of the turf, if that's the real reason that he's not going to play is because of the turf, here's what I do. I start shooting him double middle fingers, and I start drinking beer on the field, and I start doing snow angels on the turf. Literally, I have my team lay down and start doing snow angels in the turf while we're drinking Coors Light and while we're doing double middle fingers to everybody for Inter Miami. If that's the real reason why, which again, the narrative is, well, he's not playing on turf. Okay. Well, why are teams going to go in there? And I saw something that some guy said that, well, maybe MLS should get together and install these turf fields. And why? Why would Atlanta United invest Why would Atlanta United invest 5 cents in Chinese money to install turf on their field when they have the highest rated FIFA turf available? They have a great stadium. They're not going to screw the stadium up to bring in all natural grass. And what are you going to do with all that grass once they lay it? What are you going to do with all of it? Because they're not going to keep it. So what are you going to do? You're going to spend all this money to put in grass fields just to accommodate Messi? Screw him. Screw him. Screw Inter Miami. Screw Tata Martino. Screw Beckham. Screw all of them. Again, I'm double middle fingering everybody, and I'm going to make snow angels on the turf. I'm gonna be out there. I'm gonna be out there doing swimming motions on the turf. I'm gonna grab a handful of the the like pelletized rubber that's on those things, and I'm gonna start throwing it at people. Like I'm gonna grab up shovel up handfuls and throw it at people. I'd rather do that than go in and install all grass in that field just to accommodate Messi, just so Messi will kind of want to come here and play. No, screw that. And by the way, September 16th, the Falcons are going to be in action. So again, you're going to go through all this falderall just to accommodate Messi? No, screw him, screw their team. If again, I'm going out and drinking beer and doing snow angels well before I'm going to go out and accommodate Lionel Messi. I don't care who he is. I don't care what kind of draw he is. Okay. I don't care what he thinks he is. Atlanta United is the top attendance team in MLS by a ton. By a ton. They average more fans, have more total attendance. They're up almost 4,000 people year over year. I don't need Lionel Messi. I don't need him. Listen, in the words of Jack Nicholson in the movie As Good as It Gets, here's my message to Messi and Inter Miami and Tata Martino and everybody associated with it, okay? Go sell crazy somewhere else. We're all stocked up here. All right, well, thank you so much for making Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery your first listen. Be sure to go in and leave us a comment on whatever podcast platform that you listen on, that you're an everyday listener to the program. So we thank you so much for being a part of our community and part of our show. So we thank you so much for that. You can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Get the latest episodes of Hittin' Hard as soon as they become available. Check us out on the Sirius XM app as well, and give me a follow on my personal Twitter page at JMCH316. Back with you on Monday. This has been Hittin' Hard with Jon Chuckery, Locked On Sports Atlanta.